Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ryan here with DP Marketing.Services with the corny intro. Also, the author of the book on digital marketing for plumbing and HVAC contractors. So, thanks for stopping by. Coming at you with a video today that's a little bit somber. I'm not loving this particular subject matter, but I thought it'd be helpful. So, several years ago, we wrote an article. It got a lot of coverage because we did the research on the top 5 reasons that home service businesses fail. And we went through the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we went through like all the records to actually figure out quantifiably what are the most common reasons that plumbing and HVAC shops fail. Because there's a couple things that you should know if you don't already. One, plumbing and HVAC companies have the highest failure rate of all industries within a 5-year window. So more than restaurants, more than whatever else, more HVAC and plumbing shops close within 5 years than any other type of company in any other type of industry. And two, it's a really saturated market, right? Between plumbing and HVAC, there's well over a million registered and documented people who practice in the trades. So you talk about a million of those people spinning up and shutting down within a 5-year window. There's a lot of turnover. So we've talked about these things, we've analyzed them, and I'll put a link to that particular article below. But on this, I wanted to come at you with an autopsy of a company that we've actually worked with, that we know them well, and I won't say their name because they're still kind of getting stuff sorted out. But they have they've fallen into this particular issue. Now the specifics are a little bit different than usual. So they're not a 5-year-old company. In fact, they're a 50-year-old company. And it's not something where they struggle to get business. In fact, if you looked on Google, they have the best ranking on all the search terms in their market since we've started working with them. So when it comes to like online marketing and doing things well, you couldn't really ask for a better outcome. The one of the things that I would say is a lot of guys think that, hey, all they really need to do to grow their business is get more leads. And this is an example where that's not necessarily the case. So for this company, one of the things that they would struggle with out of the gate is managing financials. And I don't mean setting prices. That's different, and that I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I'm talking about, like, I would go into their shop and we'd have meetings, and it would be like February, right, that we're kind of having a sit down. And they would say that they're still trying to close out their books from June or July. And they were insourcing like all their bookkeeping, all their AR and AP, like all their financial side of the business. They were just handling in-house. They were never able to get a bookkeeper or a qualified CPA to actually help offload some of those things for them. And so they just kept getting more and more behind. They would always have cash in the bank to cover the most urgent things like payroll and spiffs and any sort of like supplier costs. But eventually those things kind of ran out. They weren't able to manage like what actually is the cash that they have on hand that's usable, right? That's not already allocated to some other expense. And those things started snowballing. Managing the financials is on our top 5 list. So again, I'll link to that below because it's worth the read. But you have to know your numbers. You have to be on top of them. You have to. If you don't know your numbers and if you don't control your numbers control you. And this is a case where no matter how many leads they came in, because the financials weren't under control, that it was impossible for them to get out of it. In fact, I could probably make an argument if you were to push me on it a little, that because the leads became more than historically they had been for the company, it actually made some of the problems worse, because now you had a higher carry rate on some of that short-term debt of just paying back your suppliers for all these installs that you're not normally carrying that much debt, but you're your cash flow system isn't managed to support that. Your cash flow isn't managed to support having to hire the additional staff and carry the additional payroll to handle that sort of increased workflow. So in some ways, having more leads actually made the problem more painful, but because the financials weren't managed well, you didn't really know. Another thing that popped up in this, so one was the financials, the other would be knowing your break-even price. So as you know, we're big proponents over a flat rate pricing model. I don't care who you use. I don't care if it's, there's tons of options to do some sort of flat rate method. You can make your own flat rate method. I really don't care. The point is, if you're doing time and materials, you're always neglecting the financial health of your business. And you're doing it because you don't understand the benefit that a flat rate pricing model provides for your business. A flat rate pricing model at its core is built to help you maintain profitability, maintain cash flow and solvency, even during the lean seasons. It's not something that's designed to take advantage of customers. It's not something to help salesmen get massive spiffs. That's not the point. The point is, when you're doing time and materials, you will always lack the financial well-being to navigate ups and downs, and you will always lack the financial well-being to accommodate things like inflation. So in the case of this particular company, again, they're not a 5-year-old company. They're much older. For about 8 years, they neglected to update their pricing model. So even as techs were getting raises, even as their materials and parts houses were charging them more, even as things were going up, they were reluctant to pass on those extra costs to the customer. The problem is, those costs have to go somewhere, right? And in this case, it put the company in a bind because what ended up happening is that they had a large amount of accounts payable due that they could not float, and all those numbers just caught up to them. So our particular preference, this is again not a service we provide, but just from a business solvency standpoint, your books should be updated at least on an annual basis based on the previous year. Oh, sorry, my light turned off. Let's try this again. Yay, motion lights. So your book should be updated at least once a year based on the previous 12 months of service calls and the volume that you worked, and adjusted for what you anticipate your projected growth to be in the upcoming year. If you anticipate that your growth to remain steady, then great. So you're just doing really simple adjustments for inflation and any sort of price changes that you are incurring based on things like giving your guys bonuses or giving your guys cost of living increases or your parts suppliers charging you more. But if you expect your numbers to go up, then you can also expect your other margins to go up. You have to know your break-even point. If you are not billing at least your break-even, you are literally losing money. Even if you think you're making money, even if you see numbers going up in your bank account, you're missing the point. The break-even is what determines the future of your business, and that does not include profit. Profit has to be factored in because, again, you're not a government entity and you're not a nonprofit. You're a business. You have to pay yourself profit. So update your break-even point every year. Know your margins every year. Make sure that your pricing for whatever flat rate service you do, that you update on the regular. That's not something you do every 5 or every 10 years. By that point, your numbers are gone. You could also, by the way, do this in the future. So you could say things like, hey, we're expecting to pay our techs a 2 or 3% cost of living increase next year. You can adjust your flat rate model now to include those new margins so that next year it's no real skin off your back. You've already got it built in. But you have to make sure that your flat rate model changes. So enough rambling at that point. Know your financials, know your flat rate, your break even. And this is also a case where, because those are probably the two biggest things, it involves just cash flow from a lack of financial sort of management. You can't really make an argument that, oh, their reviews are bad or their sales policies are bad. Like there's nothing critically about how the company managed on the technical side that was a problem. In fact, I would probably make the argument that this company had the highest level of certifications. They had the most certified techs of any business in their market within a 400-mile radius. They had very good standards, qualifications, certifications. The amount of training that goes into your trade doesn't help how successfully you can operate a business. There's a metaphor that there's a big difference between baking a cake and running a bakery. So as a tradesman or tradeswoman, you know how to make a great cake, right? You can probably repipe a house better than anyone, or you could probably install a mini split in like 0.3 hours. Probably not, but whatever. But that's very different than understanding your KPIs, understanding your margins, understanding the financials, and managing those numbers to help you build a better bakery. So don't love making this video today because it's one of those things where we know statistically shops go out of business, but this one hit close to home. And so just wanted to kind of have a quick debrief and autopsy on it. I would love to know your thoughts. If you've worked in previous companies that have had similar struggles, what did you learn from it? Or what struggles are you currently experiencing in your company that maybe you go, hey, these are things that would help other guys too, to avoid this sort of autopsy scenario. Again, I'm going to leave a link in the description so you can check out the other 5 things. But I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. As always, guys, follow us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.